Good evening and welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. We start every meeting with a pledge to the flag, so if everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have quite an extensive agenda tonight, but unfortunately, it's difficult for us tonight because of the passing of one of our own, and it's difficult because Roger Pecos he was a great teacher and a great individual. Did a lot for this school, and it's sad to see him pass just a year and a half since he retired. But if we could just have a moment of silence for Roger Pecos, former Fredonia Technology education teacher, FTA president, bowling coach, student council advisor, STEP program principal, assistant high school principal. If we could just have a moment of silence. Thank you. The board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Concerns and comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for this meeting. Audience members seeking a response should complete board correspondence sheet and return it to our district clerk, Christine Slagle. Christine.
Over here.
Over here. Thank you. You moved around on me. Audience members are asked to adhere to social distancing regulations when addressing the Board of Education. Is there anyone who would like to address the board tonight?
I'm Andy Ludwig. I live at 30 Ryan Place. A couple of things that I see missing from the agenda. You're going to hire a superintendent tonight. It does not indicate here what his salary will be, and I think you owe it to the public to disclose that at this time. You're also doing a number of hirings, and I understand that some of these may be necessary for your attempt at reopening. In difficult budget times, when I was middle school principal, I was often asked to present to the community and to the board each and every position in my building and justify the need for that position, show how many students that particular individual will be working with, so that the board and the taxpayers would know that we weren't hiring more people than we needed and that we were making good financial use of their money. And I think that that is in order as well with all these hirings, particularly as we continue to discuss this reopening process. Another expenditure on here, and I'm sure you all would have discussed this in detail had I not brought it up, but I'll bring it up anyway. Let's see here. Agenda item H, approve the purchase of equipment for health and safety reasons. You're going to purchase 6 thermal temperature taking cameras for $11,988. 12 grand for thermometers. $39.99 at Ollie's. You could buy one of these for every school employee and still have some money left over for $11,000. I look forward to your discussion as you talk about why it's necessary to spend $11,988 on thermometers. When I keep hearing about this budget crisis that we have looming. Also wondering why there isn't a reopening update on the agenda so that people who want to speak to that could speak now and not have to sit through the whole meeting. Almost seems like you're trying to discourage discussion. I look forward to hearing you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? Okay, with that, we have the approval of the
It's 6 feet or a mask, it's not 6 feet and a mask.
Hi, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Kelly Schrantz. I live at 205 Lambert. My husband and I are both here today. Ed is in the back over there. We have 3 children that have gone to or are still in Fredonia, and 2 of them have graduated, our sons. Our daughter is a junior, and I wanted to come and talk a little bit about the importance of making sure that this reopening happens. First, I wanted to point out that Fredonia has been a great place for our family, and the teachers in it, the programs, the community has been outstanding. And I wanted to say that it's important to get back to things as they should be for children. My husband and I are both teachers, both science teachers. I teach at Casadega, he teaches at Jamestown. And so we are looking at this from a point of view of parents and teachers who are both in districts that have a hybrid plan going on. I also want to say that I know from what I see my daughter doing that she is getting instruction, and the teachers are working very hard at making sure that they get their curriculum going. And her, along with her friends, could tell you that there are certain teachers that reach out to them and will send them happy notes and just encouragement. But with all of that, they are still longing to be in the classroom. They're missing out on day-to-day encouragement from peers. They're missing out on just the flow of different conversations and open discussions within the classroom. And I can tell you, being a teacher of a hybrid plan, it's harder to teach remote and to get just things to be the way that they need to be to keep our students from falling into depression and just missing out on the other things that education offers. Education has always been way more than just the curriculum that the teachers cover. And that is why we got into teaching in the first place, to make a difference in the lives of children. And you know as well as I know that households are different across the communities. And some students may flourish, some students may do well, but be missing out on all the other things that education should be. But some students are falling further and further behind, and they're missing a major part of their life. I wanted to let the teachers and the board know, and the reopening committee, that we want to be here for you if you have questions on what works, what doesn't work, what our views are on our hybrid openings, and why it is definitely worth every extra ounce of effort put in, because that's what we do. That's why we're teachers and why we are here. Please let us know if there's anything we could do, questions that we could answer, or be of any further assistance. Thank you.
Ms. Schrantz, your first name was Kelly?
Kelly.
Thank you, Ms. Schrantz.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address the board?
Hi there, Julie McCullough, 131 Pulaski Street. I am asking about the approved appointment of personnel on a long-term, continuing, temporary, or per diem substitute basis, as I see that there's a number of names there for classified teaching assistants, and I actually posed this question to the board through Ms. Slagle for a response. as to why we are now entering quarter 2 in a teaching position for the teaching assistant position for the middle school 5th grade success skills class has still not been filled. And actually taking it a step further, it has not been posted for. Rather than post and fill the teaching assistant position at that level, the children who would normally have that class have instead had an excess study hall, my daughter being one of those children. If you are a student in 5th grade that is not in band or chorus and you are supposed to have success skills, you have 3 study halls a day. So while the 5th graders are only in school 2 days a week, 3 out of their 9 periods, 1/3 of their day is sitting in study halls. If your child is in band or orchestra, they have 2 study halls a day. I have asked Ms. Troutman a number of times about this position, and I've asked Dr. Taggarty a number of times about this position as well. Ms. Troutman has stated that the TA that was teaching that class had been pulled to the elementary in order for them to bring students back full-time. And when I asked her how come the position had not been filled, she said that she does not post the positions, that is the duty of the superintendent. When I asked Dr. Taggarty on Friday, October 23rd, why that position had still not been filled, she told me, I don't know. And when I asked her, what do you mean you don't know? I have been talking about this endlessly through calls, emails, and in-person visits on top of speaking at the board meetings now 4 times. How come that position hasn't been posted? And I got the response, I don't know what you want me to tell you, Julie. I can't make something up. I don't know. So I'm asking, again, who does know the answer to this? A TA position is a drop in the hat. It's a $20,000 position here. And it's really sad that Fredonia has known that this class has been sitting vacant for 10 weeks. And rather than post a position for 20 grand, we would rather let our children sit around idle in study halls. That's not what's doing best for kids. I'm hoping that you answer the question that was posed via the correct correspondence about this position sometime throughout the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCullough. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? If not, we have the approval of a consent agenda. The adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second, an affirmative vote by members present, approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove any item from the consent agenda. This item will then come up for discussion as part of the regular agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite routine matters so that the board has more time to deal with substance matters. Can I have a motion to bring the proposed agenda to the floor, please? Mr. Hawk, and a second? Second. Mr. Johnson. So what we're going to do is, now that it's on the floor, if there's anyone who would like to pull anything out, but at the same time, what I would like to do is I would like to move one item to the very front, and that is, item 6A. If we could move that to the front and then proceed as we have it here. So is there anyone who would like to pull anything out? No? Okay. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. So we move on to item 6A. And we have to approve the appointment of the superintendent of schools. And what I'm going to do is just ask for a motion first and a second and then we can have a discussion. So if I could have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Gullo. And a second? Thank you, Mr. Forrester. So, one of the most important tasks that a Board of Education undertakes is to select a new superintendent. I will say it is the most important task that the board has. None of the board took this lightly, and through looking at resumes, interviewing twice, discussions, more phone calls, more texts, more emails, this board took a very involved activity in this selection. We also engaged stakeholder groups that represented students, parents, staff, teachers, and administrators to meet with the candidates and provide us feedback. The feedback we received with our own interview made it clear that Brad Ziliaks was well prepared to lead this district. Mr. Ziliaks grew up in Chautauqua County, received his bachelor's degree in history at SUNY Brockport, a master's degree in history at Kent State, and an educational doctorate in educational leadership at the University of Rochester. During his interview, we reflected one of the most influential positions of his career was in his role as a teacher of economics, history, and government. It was this position where he attained an understanding. He didn't just learn, he understood these subjects for a foundation of his own personal life. Mr. Ziliaks presented to the board a plan to detail how he would get started in his role of superintendent, which is an entry plan. We were impressed with his command for leadership, not just taking command, but in how to effectively lead an organization with various groups and interests. Brad provided his core beliefs and values that I'm sure he will be providing to all. There are 3 beliefs within this statement that I'd like to just highlight. Number 1, he would be a leader who works for the good and safety of all and puts students first. It is a common goal of this board to put students first. He would be a leader who believes in the power of positive working relationships that builds trust and morale within the school community. He would be a leader who is not afraid to take informed risk while keeping in mind the magnitude of change. Again, there's probably 8 to 10 different core values that he has. These are 3 that I've pulled out that I think say a lot about Mr. Ziliaks. There were 2 things that convinced me Mr. Ziliaks is the right individual for Fredonia. During the interview, when asked about his role of the superintendent in the community, he said, "Seek first to understand, then be understood." It is one of the principal habits Stephen Covey lists in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you haven't read the book, it's well worth it. But I appreciated him saying this because it is so true in a position of leadership as superintendent. The second thing that convinced me that Mr. Ziliaks is the right person, when we asked about the skills of a 21st century graduate that a 21st century graduate should possess, he immediately brought up an article in Forbes magazine. It was obvious that he understood this question and had it ingrained within him. It went on to, the article explained what employers want in individuals, the qualities that employers want. Complex problem solving, thinking creatively, leadership, emotional awareness, and emotional intelligence. Mr. Ziliaks believed these things. He understood them. He wasn't reciting them. This was a core belief of his. This was an answer this board has been pondering for several years. And Mr. Ziliak's provided an answer, not because he studied it for a test, but because he understands this and applied it in his former positions. Any other comments? I couldn't have said it all.
Brad, I welcome you to Fredonia. If everybody passes, you get yay, but I think what Ryan spoke of, we all heard loud and clear, and we look forward to working with you in this district.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Mr. Ziliak, congratulations and welcome to Fredonia. I will now put you on the spot and see if you have anything that you'd like to say.
Well,
Being our leader.
If you are going to give me the floor, I'm not going to turn you down. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm truly humbled and honored to be here tonight. I very much look forward to joining the team at Fredonia. I very much appreciate the opportunity that's been presented to me, and it is not lost on me the responsibility and the power of the role of superintendent. But one of the things I just want to go back to very quickly is that I believe in any organization, but particularly in a school district, we need to do this together. I do not want people in the district to feel like things are happening to them. I want them to feel like they're part of something. And how you go about doing that is by utilizing the expertise that we have in the district, tapping in to the skills and abilities that are here in Fredonia. We do that by seeking input from people, allowing them to respond to questions that we pose to the public, to our staff, to our TAs, to whoever are the interested stakeholders or whatever the situation might be we're working on. So this is really at the foundation of who I am as a person, who I am as a leader, and part of what I will bring to Fredonia as superintendent. I also wanted to say that in all of this, I recognize that it's a very interesting time in education. I recognize there's a lot happening in Fredonia, but also around Fredonia. I know that the district has very conscientiously monitored the things that are happening, the science, the data, the information. We will continue to do so. But the point is, all that is resulting in adjusting and adapting our plans moving forward to A, make sure people are as safe as possible, but also to provide that education that we know that's critical to our young people. And there's a balance there. And I know sometimes it's tough to strike a favorable balance where everybody feels good about what's happening, but this will be our goal and our role moving forward, to take in that information and make the best decisions that we possibly can with the available data at the time. Lastly, I just want to say that through the interview process, from the students to the support staff, to the faculty, to the administrators that I see many here tonight, to the community members, to the Board of Education, the word that kept coming back to me is two, thoughtful. The student questions were maybe the toughest questions I've ever faced in an interview. And they probably had the most questions out of any group. That was the first group of the day. I came and sat down at the table, quick introductions, and then the questions started. But very thoughtful questions, and that was a theme throughout the day. The other thing I noticed is that there was a lightness and a sense of humor in the dialogue and the conversation. This was not stale, flat conversations between a candidate and a group of people who were part of a committee. These were lively discussions, light, at times humorous, at times interesting, at times enlightening. but it just gave me a really great feel of what Fredonia is all about. And lastly, I just want to say, I understand that we're at a little bit of a crossroads here, and I understand the importance of the work that we're doing. And in my mind, the power that we have is doing this work together and doing the best we can for students and making sure that they're at the forefront of all the decisions, of all the conversations, and all the plans we put in place. So, sorry to ramble a little bit, but you gave me the floor. And, you know.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was told at the beginning of the meeting that board members have received face masks that are that come from the Fredonia Athletics.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Lauer, is Mr. Lauer here tonight? He's at a game this evening. Well, thank you, Mr. Lauer. This is nice. Okay. So we have, next we have the approval of minutes from the last meeting. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Powell-Fortner. And a second?
Second.
Ms. Gullo, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the 2019-2020 External Audit Report. Ms. Nicole from Baggett, Loretta Baggett. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I think most of you know me. I'm Laura Napoli. I'm from Baggett and Loretta Baggett. We prepare your external audit, so I'm presenting the audit from June 30th, 2020, your last fiscal year end. I did a pretty lengthy presentation with the audit committee, so tonight I'm going to do a summary of that. Borrow your table. Page number 2 of your audit report starts the actual audit report. It is an unmodified opinion, which means that your financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It is the best audit opinion that you can get. The next pages that I'd like to point out are pages 20 and 21. These are the government-wide full accrual financial statements of the district. They are your statement of net position, which in the for-profit world would be your balance sheet. And the next one is the statement of activities, which in the for-profit world would be your profit and loss. So I just want to point out that these statements include all the governmental funds of the district, plus the capital assets and long-term liabilities of the district. Page number 22 starts your balance sheet of your governmental funds. So these are the operating funds of the district. You have general fund, special aid fund, school lunch, and capital projects. In your general fund, you have $8.8 million of assets, $2.2 million of liabilities, and $6.5 million in fund balance. Your fund balance is broken up into 3 categories for the general fund. One is the restricted portion of your fund balance, and if you go to page number 42, page 42 lists out what's included in that restricted fund balance. It is the reserves of the district. You have 5 reserves: an employee benefit and food liability reserve, tax tertiary reserve, unemployment insurance reserve, a capital reserve, and a retirement contributions reserve. Next, you have your assigned fund balance. That is made up of 2 things: your encumbrances and your appropriated fund balance. The appropriated fund balance is the amount of money that we use to reduce taxes for the next year. And the encumbrances are basically purchases that were made but not paid for until the new year. The last is your unassigned fund balance, which is $3.674 million. One of the things in the audit is that we have to take a look at that and say, how much is that of next year's budget? It is 11.9, excuse me, I have to look it up. It's 11.98% of your next year's fund balance. As you know, the state says that you're allowed to have 4% of your next year's budget, and you guys have more than that, which again, with changes, potential changes to state aid is really not a bad thing. It's a good thing to have a healthy fund balance right now in this current climate. The next thing that I wanted to go over, talk quickly about your special aid school luncheon capital project. Special aid fund is your fund where you record your federal and state grants. Those are reimbursable grants, so the money that comes in goes out, no fund balance in the federal funds. School lunch fund, you have a healthy fund balance. We've talked about this before too. There have been a lot of capital improvements that the district has done and has more planned. Capital projects has a negative fund balance. You guys have been undergoing a large capital project. So what happens is you have short-term funding. Once it goes to long-term funding, that negative fund balance will go away. The next thing that I wanted to go through is the district spends more than $750,000 in federal funds. So you have what's called a single audit, where we take a look at the federal grants and we take a more detailed look at the expenditures in the grants. We had just one finding in that area where some additional backup needed to be attached to a voucher. We fully discussed that with the business office and their responses that they will in the future ensure that it's all attached appropriately. There's a couple other things in there. One is that we have to let the board know that we assist with the preparation of the financial statements. That's nothing new, and it's nothing unique to your district. It happens in every district. And the district has made strides to improve the internal controls in the business office, and we've hired an assistant business official. So once all those segregation of duties get finalized, I imagine that those findings will go away. The last part for your audit is we had some internal control suggestions to improve the internal controls, and I went through those extensively with the audit committee. So, we just had some recommendations for the district to follow, which they plan to follow in the future. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you see the increase in the fund balance to be inappropriate because it seems like it's spread over the restricted and assigned?
Yeah, you did increase your assigned fund balance, which means you use more money of your fund balance to reduce taxes. I think a lot of the increase in the fund balance this year, last year, the closure in March, reduced some costs of transportation and other costs. So, we had more than anticipated in increase in fund balance for the 1920 year.
Okay. And then under the total government funds on page 22 of this year, compared to last year, we're looking at about $5 million difference short. So is that due to the capital project?
That's due to the capital project. So you had, there's a supplementary schedule that shows what your capital project expenditures were for the year. It's on page 77. So we have about almost $6 million in capital expenditures for the year. So that's what you're doing.
So just to clarify, because I wasn't at the audit committee meeting, how are we paying for that now?
So you have a bond anticipation note, which is a short-term financing. So the capital project should complete in the 2021 school year. So once that happens, then you'll go to a long-term financing. You'll change that short-term debt into long-term debt, a serial bond. When that happens, that negative fund balance goes away.
Okay. And where's the cost of that annually,
What's the cost of what?
that short term?
The short-term financing? I mean, it ranges, I think you're at about 1%
This
with your
total
interest rate.
annual cost?
Yeah, so there's a cost of interest, and then there are some other costs, legal costs, and financial advisory costs.
So it's 1%, you think?
I think that's what it was for 1920 for your grant. Was that right?
Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nagel. And again, the audit committee has reviewed these financial statements this past week and taken a deeper dive into this. Next, we have a review of the budget status report for September 2020. Mr. Ports?
Yes, thank you. The only thing I really wanted to point out on here was near the back, there's a large expense for the month for teacher retirement. This is the second to last page, on page 11. $406,000. What happens with the teacher retirement contributions in September, October, November, we get on paper state aid for our contribution, and then we have to book the corresponding expense against it. So you'll see a $400,000 expense each month for the 3 months of September, October, and November. Other than that, I don't have a specific comment on the September report. Also, which is not an agenda item because we don't have to have any action on it or anything like that, I did include a budget status report of November 4th. Because when we talked last meeting, there was a concern that perhaps these reports aren't timely enough. So by running the budget report as of November 4th, which was last week, that's the most current up-to-date expenditure report that you have right now. And if the board wants that to continue for each board meeting, no matter where we are with the monthly, we can certainly do that. It's a very easy process.
Okay. And everything is, it's hard to say anything is going normally at this point in time in our pandemic, but there's nothing that, no expenses that are out of line.
Well, obviously it's early in the process, so using September's report as an example, it doesn't show any cost from BOCES yet because they didn't bill us until just a couple weeks ago, which is normal. You've got decreases in things like substitute teaching costs and some of the sports that we're not having, but you also have the regular transportation, the regular salaries, the benefits, and all those things. So there's no, at this point, there's no real bubble one way or the other that you're saving a ton, you're spending a ton extra. A lot of the PPE equipment that we purchased so far, eventually, hopefully, will go through the grants. So we've had to now resubmit. So that'll cover a good portion of that. But everything else is pretty much tracking at this point, I would say, would be normal.
Okay. And I guess I'm looking at it from an accrual standpoint, not cash, so that it's, you know, forget about payables and receivables, it's normal.
Yeah,
It's within range.
If you want to talk about both sides, the only abnormal situation we have, which I think I mentioned last meeting, was we did get a 20% reduction in state aid payments for things that came in the summer, which were receivables from the prior year.
Mhm.
That was excess cost aid in August, the balance of the BOCES aid. Those two combined, we took about a $150,000 decrease. At the time they did that, the information that came down to the districts was, we're taking it now, you may get it back later, it's not a completely gone situation yet. So we'll see what happens with that. Also, to a lesser extent, there was the same 20% reduction on our cafeteria outstanding May and June receivables. We're talking about, you know, maybe a couple $1,000s there in total on that side.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ports. Any questions on that? The treasurer's report for September 2020.
Actually, we have to do item C, which is the revenue.
Excuse me. The revenue status report. That was the budget status.
So on this one, I'll point out a couple of things. First, the first line and the third line, which are real property taxes and star reimbursement. You'll notice for the current cycle, which is September, there's about $16 million booked in as revenue. Obviously, we don't get $16 million in taxes in September. So the way this works in the accounting world is you have to book the full amount of the levy, establish the full amount of levy as receivable, and then you begin to work your way down. So that's why we have to book that down. Towards the bottom of the page, under basic formula, which is the 3101 code, you see $417,000 in the current cycle. 406 of that is the offset I mentioned a moment ago with the teaching retirement system contribution. We did receive our lottery aid payment of $1.6 million, plus our supplemental, which was $48,000 in September. That was payment in full of what we expected there. And also $21,000, which is the first portion of textbook aid that we finally got. So those things are flowing the way they should be.
And you don't see a real blip in the revenue until March from the
Right.
state?
The balance of the state aid payments are, they have a spring payment, and then they have what they call a sustaining payment. And those are March, and you're talking about $3 or $4 million there, and then into April and May. So you really won't know if we're gonna have the full 20% unless they tell us well in advance, which doesn't seem to be the normal operation. You won't really see the impact until it happens, which will be sometime in March.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Flores, I have a question. This is in regards to transportation from March until June of last year. I got this information last night, that the state is not going to reimburse the districts for transporting books, computers, food to the students. That's what I understand, is that?
Right, what happened there was, I should say, first of all, for Fredonia, we have contract transportation. We did not pay for April, May, or June for any services to first students. At the time, with Mr. Sortisio and myself, we used the sources that we had to try to find out if we were supposed to continue payment to the contractors, and if we did, would we get state aid on it. The last correspondence I had from New York State was June 6th, because I saw the thing you're talking about, and basically at that time they said that we were on the to-do list and they would let us know. They've now let us know across the state that if you pay those expenses in April, May, and June, you will not be reimbursed for them. If you use transportation, which some districts did, we didn't, to deliver food to families that needed it, and those kinds of things, that was still under consideration. But none of that is going to impact us because we didn't do that.
We didn't do that at all. Okay.
Okay. Next, we have review of the treasurer's report from 2020.
That one I don't have any comment on.
Okay. No issues on that at all? Okay. Thank you. Any questions on that? If not, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Did we vote?
Mr. Aldridge, we need a motion in a second. We're done.
Oh, boy. You know, this is embarrassing with our new superintendent here. I take that as a motion, Mr. Hawk. Well, and I got a laugh, so Mr. Zambrone, you just seconded it. How's that?
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. I'm smiling underneath the mask. So, next is item 5E, review and approve the 2021 school tax collector's report. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Powell, any second? Ms. Gallo.
Mr. Aldridge, if I may, there's an addendum to the report, so if you're looking at the regular agenda.
Okay, so I apologize because I didn't see the addendum. I did get it and I didn't have an opportunity. So what is,
So the only difference there, Mr. Aldrich, is in the actual numbers themselves. And John can speak to those changes.
Yeah, basically, the collector checked the mail over the weekend, and we had $40-some thousand of taxes that came in late Friday or Saturday morning. So typically, when the tax collection process is closed, anything you receive between now and November 22nd, you're supposed to forward on to the county, or we could adjust the report.
Okay.
We knew there was an addendum already, so we took the 40,000 in payments, and then the corresponding numbers work themselves through.
Okay.
So basically, it takes you up to 95.2% of between STAR and what was paid was collected during collection, which is a pretty significant number. It's a little bit higher than we've seen in a number of years. And then we don't have that $40,000 going to the county with whatever process they have going up there now. So we decided to make that change.
That's a good thing now. Great.
So this is a roll call, Mr. Aldrich, so I will
Yes.
ask for that. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Aldrich?
Yes.
Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mrs. Porta? Yes. Mr. Giambrone?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawk?
Yes.
And Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's 5 pages that require signature of each board member, so I'll pass these around. The name is in the same spot on each one. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Just one little thing, John, regarding to our tax collection. It was really very convenient this year to go through the drive-through window. And I don't know if that's a possibility or not to continue next year.
I had a conversation with the bank during the process. They didn't seem to have any major issue. So we would certainly look to do that again.
Possibility.
We also have this year, for the first time, the ability to pay through the credit card. We only had about 22 parcels that took advantage of that, but we'll try to keep stuff like that going. So it's, if we have to maintain the social distancing, that helps with that. And if not, we'll try to make it easier on everybody.
Very good, thank you.
So we could pay with a credit card this year
You could have.
and get points,
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
money back.
I mean, there was obviously a transaction fee, which the company that handled it got that, the district didn't get it, but yeah, we could have.
Wow. Okay, so next we have, yes, a denial of level 3 applications for refunds, credits of real property taxes from RP 556 for the 2017-2018 school tax year. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Mr. Hawk. And a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnson. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Just briefly on
Mr.
this one,
Forbes?
some of the board may recall, because we've had a number of these over time, basically, the level 3 is a fiber optic situation that they're trying to get their taxes reduced or become tax-free. And there's a number of districts involved with this, that the fiber optics runs through, so this is the next year in that process. The attorney keeps saying there's plenty of case law to support the fact that it shouldn't be, but level 3 keeps trying to push it, so he's asked each district to pass this motion.
Okay.
And I will take a roll call for that as well. Mr. Aldrich?
Yes.
Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mrs. Portnoy? Yes. Mr. Giambrone?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallo?
Yes.
And Mr. Hawk?
Yes.
And Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slagle. Next, we have approval to list items for sale. We have a 2002 Ford F-350 Super Duty Cube van. Can I have a motion to at least bring that to the floor, please? Thank you, Mr. Forster. And a second on that?
Second.
Mr. Foreman, thank you very much. Any questions on that?
If I may on this one as well. When we sold equipment in the past, large equipment in the past, what we've done is brought a motion to the board to let you know that this is the process we're undertaking. We will look into the Kelly Blue Book pricing of it, also talk to local car dealer to see what market is there for that. And we would command the paper with the minimum amount. And then whatever happens with that process, we bring that back to the board for approval of the sale. If we don't get any bids, there's a process for that, too, but we'll process when we get to it.
So now, when they look at the blue book value of that, that will be just the truck. Will it include the box and the lift?
Yeah, they factor all that
They
in.
factor all that in.
In a Kelly
Okay.
Blue Book, you have, as an example, you pick your model, then you've got a mileage, high
Right,
and low,
right.
you've got condition, high or low, and you've got
Okay.
gates and boxes and things like that.
Okay,
It's not just the base truck price.
okay. Thank you. All those, any questions, first of all? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have the approval of purchase of equipment for health and safety reasons. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So,
Mr. Johnson, thank you. In a second?
Second.
Ms. Gallo, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Now, it's my understanding that these are the type of cameras, I'm wondering if they're the same type of cameras that we have down in Westwood, where they could take multiple people at one time, therefore it lessens the clogging of students at entrances. Is that correct? Okay, yes, we have used them, we've had good success with them down at Westfield as far as moving students into the building rather quick, and being able to not have them sit, 6 feet apart, walk, all the way out the door kind of thing. They got in. I think they can get up to at least 3 or 4 people at the same time when they walk through the film, so we've had good success with that.
If I may,
Yes,
another
please.
aspect of this is that it allows us to utilize staff differently as opposed to constantly taking the temperature. We had a rainy day in which it rained so hard. Mr. Ballinger was one of them. People got so wet being outside doing the thermometer checks that people literally had to only change their clothes. So this will help offset some of that as well as get the students into the building safe, and the staff into the building safer and faster.
And now, I understand that this could also be used beyond the existing pandemic crisis, but it could be used to see if an individual has a fever in the future, beyond COVID. So, yeah. Great.
Do you want to speak to the facial recognition piece to this camera?
Thank you. All those, question.
I was just gonna ask if we have some funding, some of the pandemic funding that will help offset some of the cost of this, or?
well, we did this motion this way because we don't have equipment budgeted for this in the budget. And the only way that we can purchase equipment according to your state regulation is under health and safety. Clearly, this is a COVID-related thing. So that's the first part. Second part is that the government has de-submitted, or unsubmitted, I guess is the correct word, both the ESSER and GER grants. Because there's a number of things that they want districts to go back through and recalculate and then resubmit. In the meantime, one of the vendors that we had made arrangements for Chromebook delivery has now unsubmitted their Chromebook order and will be willing to sell us the same unit at a much higher price. This market is driving that. So what we have to do, and we're working through this now, it has to be submitted by November 23rd, is we have to go back through, decide what PPE we have left, discuss the Chrome situation. There may be a possibility of moving this into that grant, which takes the board motion is on record for it. Otherwise, it would become general fund money, but we haven't quite crossed that bridge yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. Have you had these since the beginning of the year, or did you start off with?
No, they had them at the beginning of the school year.
Pardon?
They had them at the beginning of the school year.
Beginning?
Somebody counted that.
And there was one person can monitor at least 2 cameras at the same time, because what happens is, you're looking at a screen. We also don't have a large population down there, but we have 2 screens, and you can just check as people are walking in through the computers.
Right. And it's fairly, you flow right through, or?
Yeah, I walk right through every day, and It's just like walking, you don't slow down or anything, just walking over pace.
Right. Westfield has the same unit and Pine Valley. The only issue Pine Valley had was how they had them mounted. Some of the shorter kids were coming underneath the scope of the camera, so they had to relocate the camera. But other than that, they said the same thing, that, speeding up the process.
And as a follow-up question, 6 cameras, is that, I assume you have 6 entry points, is that, what's the reason for the 6?
Correct, it's the entry points, and it's, we have also locked, we want to make sure we're covered.
And how many staff would be freed up?
Oh, that's a great question. I would have to think about how many staff we currently have at each site. I would have to ask the principals how many aides are out there, but I do know in the morning at elementary, I've been there. At Wheelock, we have somebody there every morning, as folks are coming in. We used to, when I was there the other day. I know Mr. Dollinger, how many do you have?
We use about 9 staff members
About
every
9
day.
staff members. So it can be significant as we bring more students back.
And these will be fixed to the wall, or are they portable, or?
No, they're mounted.
They're mounted, so they'd stay beyond, hopefully, the pandemic.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Next, we have the review of committee meeting minutes from the Audit Committee held November 2nd, going over our audit. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Balfour, and a second?
Second.
Ms. Gallo, thank you. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of a 31-day emergency transportation contract. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Mr. Hawk. And a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnson. Any questions on that? Mr. Forbes?
Just one student that has a hopefully temporary situation requiring homelessness, and what we're going to do is do a 31-day contract, see how it progresses. The anticipation is it'll be less than that. If it's not, then we would go to the second 31-day. If it's still not, so then we have a full-blown bid that you can see.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. What do we got? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We have, thank you. We have the approval of contracts with outside agencies, with children's educational services. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So,
Mr. Johnson. And a second?
Second.
Ms. Pellerin. And this is an agenda item that we didn't discuss, but we had, this is amended from the last meeting.
Correct, we have had a contract with them in the past because we had a speech personnel. And so we continue to need the service to provide the required units for the IEP.
Okay, so the one from last meeting was up through November. This is for November through June. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the approval of probationary appointment of Timothy Finnegan. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
Item B1,
I was, sorry about that. Thank you. Item B1. We have the appointment of personnel to probationary positions. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Gullo, and a second. Mr. Forrester. Any questions on that? those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next, we have the approval of probationary appointment, Timothy Finnegan. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Mr. Hawk, and a second?
Second.
Ms. Gallo, thank you. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have the approval of the probationary appointment of Jamie Miller. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Gallo, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Johnston, thank you. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the approval of probationary appointment of Diane Snyder. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Mr. Hawk first and Ms. Powell Fortness second. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Last, we have, last for this section, we have the approval of a resignation, terminations, leave of absence for retirement for Mary Bradford, middle school teacher. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Powell Fortna, and a second?
Second. You know, I passed our red students.
Say that again?
One of my past drive red students.
I hope she did better than I as one of your students.
Well, I was just.
I guess it'd be hard to do any worse though, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mr. Cambrone. Ms. Troutman, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
And I hope you don't mind, but if you would, we have a retiring middle school teacher who has worked in this district a long time.
Mary has done a great job for us. She's, I can't say enough wonderful things about her. She's always willing to step up and help out when she can. She always has a smile on her face. Our students absolutely love her, and she is going to be very much missed and hard to replace.
Yeah. Thank you.
One more addendum item now.
Well, we have to approve it first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, caught you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And another addendum item. Okay, so we have the approval of unpaid leave of absence for Stacy Conti. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please? Ms. Powell Fortner, and a second, Mr. Johnston. Great. Any questions on that? I think her husband would tell me it's Conti, not Conti, but yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We go to new business. We have the approval of a donation of face masks and temperature screeners to the district from Chautauqua Connections Children's Coalition. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So moved.
Ms. Golo, and a second?
Second.
You do, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ms. California. Any questions on that?
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
You know,
So generous.
these people, these organizations who are just so willing to give during these times. It's wonderful. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next, we have the approval of a donation in the amount of $1,927.47 for a thermal roll laminator and lamination rolls from the Fredonia Beaver Club and the Fredonia Beaver Club Auxiliary. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor, please?
So,
Mr. Hawk. Mr. Jambrone, you want to second that one?
Second, please. Yes.
You remember, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments on that?
As a person who uses the laminator very well in Westfield, I can tell you that's a great donation. Teachers really, they can make some things that will last a long time. They can get to the laminator. It's a great donation. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And again, the Beaver Club has been just very generous with their donations to the district. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. Which takes us to item number 8, hearing from the public. The board has reserved this time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual or group. Audience members seeking a response should complete a board correspondence sheet and return it to our district clerk, Christine Slagle. Audience members are asked to adhere to social distancing regulations when addressing the Board of Education. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
Oh, I'm happy to talk again.
Andy Ludwig, 30 Ryan Place. Mr. Aldrich, when we listened to you talk about hiring Mr. Zillox, is that how you say your name, Brad?
Ziliox.
Ziliox, okay. When we listened to you talk about hiring Mr. Ziliox, you said some really nice things about him, and I kind of jotted them down. You said you wanted a leader who works for the good and safety of all and puts students first, someone who creates positive working relationships with all stakeholders, who's not afraid to take informed risks. Then you said you've been looking for these qualities for a number of years. Kind of implies that your last hire didn't have these qualities. And while I was thrilled to hear about Mr. Ziliox's credentials and the great interviews that he did for the different stakeholder groups, you never disclosed how much you're paying him. And if you're so proud of hiring him, I think you ought to be able to be proud about how much you're paying him. And I'd like to know at some point, and not have to go to see through New York or something to find that out. But let me talk about my son. He's a junior. He's been on remote learning all school year long. And I got a survey emailed to me, asked how he wanted to proceed with his learning. And I asked my son, you know, how do you feel you learn best? And even though he's not getting all of the education that he should be entitled to, at least he's getting some interaction with all of his teachers every day, unlike some of these poor families here. And I also want to emphasize the fact that he's a junior. And so remote learning could work for some older students. I certainly don't think that it should be in place for younger students, 3rd graders, 4th graders, 5th graders, even probably middle schoolers. So anyway, I'm in full support of just bringing everybody back, wearing a mask, putting these safety protocols in place. So my son wants to stay on remote learning until he can come back full-time in person all day, every day. And we plan to do that for him. But I was very dismayed to learn that if he stays on remote, he'll get less instruction than he's getting right now. And you just made a number of hires. You spent $12,000 on some thermometers that can also do facial recognition, and you don't even want to speak to the invasion of personal privacy issue with that. So you're gonna spend all this money and my kid's gonna get less instruction if he stays on remote? So you wanted to buy these thermometers, cameras, whatever you wanna call them, to free up 9 people? Are those 9 people gonna be doing some teaching now? And if they are, then why can't we provide more instruction for our students? So, Mr. Ziliak, you've got your work cut out for you. I sure hope you're up for the task, and I wish you the best of luck. And, you know, I got a little bit of experience with this reopening stuff. Happy to give you any advice if you might ask for it. Same with the board.
Thank you, Mr. Ludwig. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight?
Hi, I'm Kara Trippy, 223 Lambert. I hope you all were able to read my opinion article that was published in the paper this weekend. It goes without saying how disappointed the parents are that attended the October 20th meeting and talked about all of the concerns that their children were having. I followed up with multiple emails. I followed up with phone conversations. Nothing happened since October 20th until today. Absolutely nothing changed. I just want to highlight a couple of issues that I'm still having difficulty understanding. There are 372 students enrolled in grades 1 through 4. Okay? 63 of these are remote children. That's 17% of the children in grades 1 through 4. 83% would like to see their children in person, in the elementary level. I have a 3rd grader. I also have a 5th grader. Currently, still, the elementary school is leaving 3 spots in every single class for these 17% children to return to school if they want to. They have already chosen remote. The district does not obviously have the flexibility to support such a plan if that leaves 83% not getting any type of a choice. I brought this up numerous times. I've talked to people about it, and they still say that that is one of the #1 reasons my 8th grader, or my 8-year-old, cannot go to school 5 days a week. Plus, you have 4 full-time teachers that are teaching these 63 children. That's about average 14 students per remote teacher, when social distancing is not necessary for remote children. Another topic that I brought up at the last meeting was on October 20th, was the fact that the hybrid plan that was approved by the district was uneven. My daughter came home from school yesterday. Again, she says, I say, how's school? She says, awesome, best day ever. Always what she tells me when she gets home from school. She goes, there was one bad thing. I said, what was that? She's like, well, my day falls on a holiday, so I don't get to go to school again until Friday. I didn't have the heart to tell her that she only gets to go to school 4 more days this entire month, and it's only November 10th. My daughter in group 2 goes to school 7 days this month, but group 1 goes to school 10 days. And I asked on the October 20th if we could, just give group 2 a day, 1 day. I sent 8 emails. I talked to Dr. Taggarty and I talked to Mr. Drollinger.
And I got an email last night from Mr. Drollinger, pretty much summing up the fact that nothing has been done about this, and I was asking for 1 day. I don't know where it is, pretty much saying that they couldn't let families know at this point in November, right? That you need to let families know earlier, but I asked about this in October. I don't understand why nothing has been done since October 20th. A quarter of the school year has gone by, and now we're dealing with this, you know, the yellow, the orange, and the red. Our kids could have been in school this entire first quarter and gotten a great start. I really hope something changes after this. I know, Dr. Tagerty, you've said that you don't want to, you know, make any decisions for the new superintendent to walk into, but you have made no decisions. You have been no help to this district. There has been no leadership. And I hope that changes.
Thank you, Ms. Tribby. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hi, Julie McCullough again. Welcome, Mr. Ziliaks.
Hi, thank you.
I would like to read to you a petition that I started that was ran in the paper a couple weeks ago. As a Fredonia Central School District parent and/or taxpayer, we, the undersigned, are dissatisfied with the district's lack of leadership, careless spending of our tax dollars, and the delayed and poorly planned pandemic reopening for the 2021 school year. We, the undersigned, demand practical and decisive leadership from school officials, prudent and conservative expenditures of our tax dollars, and a fair and equitable reopening plan that culminates in full-time, in-person instruction for all students. This is an ongoing petition, and I will hand it in prior to sitting down. There's 130 signatures right now on this signed petition. There's also other ways to voice displeasure in what's been going on in this district, one of which is standing up here, the other is emails and calls, and the other would be, as the parents of over 50 students did, pull their kids right out of this district to neighboring schools because we have no plan. As Ms. Trippi referenced, I spoke with administrators this week and last. I spoke to Mr. Drollinger, Mr. Paschke, Ms. Troutman, Ms. Piper. I spoke to Ms. Paul Homus as well in the middle school. And I was curious about the allocation of resources that we currently have, which you also said when you spoke a while ago. Currently, the remote students do seem to pose a problem in this district. After speaking with Mr. Drollinger today, he told me that first grade has 16 remote students, second grade has 18, third grade has 9, fourth grade has 20, and fifth grade has 6. That's 69 students in total. And we currently have 5 full-time teachers teaching 69 students. I also talked to Mr. Forrester last week. As we all know, he's a teacher and union president in Westfield. And we had a lengthy discussion about this and brainstormed different things that other districts are doing. In Westfield, he conveyed to me that their remote students are taught by teaching assistants. And the teaching assistants actually clump the grade levels together. So one teaching assistant teaches grades kindergarten first and second, and another teaching assistant teaches grades 3, 4, and 5. I too have mentioned this multiple times for almost 3 months now, because while the number of students does become part of the equation, it is certainly not the only equation here, part of the equation here. According to the teacher's contract, we try to limit class sizes to 25 in the middle and high school, and the number's a little bit lower, 20, 22 perhaps in the elementary. But the other part of this is that a teacher has certification and they also have contact time that they are required by their contract. Each teacher is contractually required to have 200 minutes of contact time per student. I'm curious as to if all of those remote learners are receiving 200 minutes of Zoom per day, which would imply contact time. I'm guessing no. My daughter received nowhere near that on contact time per day, nowhere near that. As a matter of fact, Mr. Drollinger conveyed to me earlier that his remote learners get 120 minutes a day. So right there would imply that the teachers are not teaching their maximum per day. Why are we not allocating the resources better that we have? These teachers are certified to teach elementary school. One level of 9 kids, 120 minutes a day does not make a full-time teacher. 5 remote students, 120 minutes a day does not mean a full-time teacher. When speaking about budget, when speaking about resources, when speaking about bringing kids back to school because we need more teaching staff, no, we don't. We're not using the teaching staff that we have. The teaching staff that we have is not all working full-time. Why, as a taxpayer, would I want to encourage hiring more staff and my taxes being raised when we're not utilizing the staff that we have? I continue to ask this question every time that I'm up here. Every email that I send, every phone call that I make, and it's met with blank stares, responses that don't answer the questions, or I don't knows. This is crazy. The petition should go without saying, but in case it doesn't, let me clarify. All of these things, of course, safety comes first when implementing all of these things. Yes, I'm a mom and I want my kid to be safe too. That should go without saying. The other word, culminate, yes, our goal as a district should be culminating in full-time, in-person instruction for all students. Yes, that is an obvious goal as educators, that at some point we would want to bring all children back to school 5 days a week. Personally speaking, the problems that I have been fighting endlessly do not have to do with COVID. They do not have to do with this pandemic. Yes, it is an added layer of stress to everything that's been going on, but the non-posting of a TA position, that doesn't have to do with COVID. Balancing class sizes with teachers, that doesn't have to do with COVID. Spending money or not spending money that's there, come on. These things don't have to do with the pandemic. They have to do with poor leadership, lack of planning. All of these things, thermometers, we're still talking about this on November 10th. We should have had all of these things down in the summer. And as Ms. Trippi said, here we are in November, and we still have no plan. We still have no date of full return. And any date that has been pushed out, as referenced in her letter, continually gets pushed back. I'm really concerned right now that if we get shut down, my child is back to a remote schedule that is still lacking. Still. How do we get to a better place here? We have a remote schedule that lacks. We have kids that sit around, idle, bored, doing nothing. And we're still not posting for these positions, and we're still not utilizing what we have. Mr. Ziliaks, I would love to exchange some information with you prior to leaving. I'd love to have a phone call and an in-depth conversation with you about this prior to your start. I welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCullough. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? No? The Chautauqua County School Board Association will host a presentation by Mr. Rick Timms entitled New York State Budget Analysis, to be held Wednesday, November 18th. Please register with Slagle on that if board members are interested in that. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is November 24th, right here in the high school library. With that, Mr. Jambrone, do you have anything you'd like to,
No, nothing at this
any
point. Thank you.
announcements? Mr. Hawk? Mr. Forrester?
Welcome, Mr. Ziliak.
Thank you. Ms. Poplar?
Same, excited to have you on board, thanks.
Well, it would have been unique if I went first, but welcome, looking forward to it.
And Mr. Okay. I should have asked you if you have anything else to add.
I would like to add a couple of things.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize some of our students in the music department. I have been watching some of their performances via their creativity on Zoom. I did send you the ones if you had time. Just outstanding. So I really want to thank the students for their extra efforts, their creativity, and the teachers that are there supporting them. It's just, if you get the chance to watch those performances, please do so. Just outstanding. I also want to thank a couple of our staff. Amanda Pekanowski has been awarded, if you recognized, as Teacher of the Year for Ice Skate and for technology. She's with the middle school. She did not want any formal recognition by the board, but I thought it would be important for us to recognize her and to say thank you for what she's done. I also want to thank the teachers and staff that were a part of our recognition today with the Veterans Parade. Kristen Tomaszewski was pretty much the leader who initiated, got things going, but there were several people that helped along the way. It was absolutely amazing to be out there. Our students lined up, they had their flags and their thank yous, and the veterans drove by in their cars, and truly was a great experience for me. Very, very deeply moved by all of that, so I want to thank those folks. And lastly, I too want to say welcome to our new superintendent, and I want you to know that this is an amazing place to be. There are great, great, great things happening here, and I truly feel blessed to have been a part of it while I am here. And I think that you will find that you will get a very, very warm welcome by people, and I wish you very well.
Thank you. Mr. Paskey, what's happening in the high school?
We're getting ready for the reopening, sending out information to families. I do want to take just a second just to say thank you for remembering Roger Takis at the beginning of the meeting. Roger and I have been friends and colleagues for over 30 years. Just a tragic loss, and I just thank you for honoring him. It means a lot. And lastly, Mr. Ziliak's welcome to you. We also have a Fredonia mask, the official changing of the mask.
Never heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paskey. Ms. Troutman?
I just want to say welcome. We look forward to working with you, and it's exciting to have you here.
Same here, agreed.
Would you like a thermometer?
Mr. Drollinger?
Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. I want to welcome you to the district. I'm excited for working alongside you and learning from you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And Ms. Piper.
Thank you.
Mr. Forbes, any announcements?
Thank you.
And I know, Ms. Farrow, you're
Sorry,
hiding.
it's behind the pole. I just wanted to welcome you and say congratulations.
Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you. So, the board anticipates the need to enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to particular personnel. We will not be making any decisions, but we will go into executive session as long as we approve it, coming out and then adjourning. So if I could get a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Hawk, and a second.
Second.
Mr. Johnson, all approved, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, thank you. We are in executive session at 7:30.